Okay, well, hello everyone. Welcome to today's event. This is our February 2021 Portals community call, the second of the year. It's great to have everyone with us here. I hope everyone's doing well. Today's session is going to have a guest speaker once again, Omar Zaarour, talking about Power Apps Portals Web API. And as we get started, please do know that we do welcome your questions during today's event. Look for the questions block, enter them anytime. I know Nick's always happy to take those.
Except that they're about licensing.
Right. We throw those right in the trash. But but we're also recording today's event, so you can come back to it later. We'll send out details on that as well. So without any further delay, Nick, I think I'm ready to give you the floor.
Sounds good. All right, well, again, thanks everyone for showing up and for your interest in portals. And I'm super excited about today's presentation from Omar. So I'm going to try and get through this little kind of preamble stuff as quickly as possible so that we can see as many examples of the Portals Web API as we can fit into the next hour. So let's get things rolling here. I guess at this point, if you've been on any of these calls, you don't know who I am. My name is Nicholas Hayduk, President, Engineer Code, MVP, been working with Portals a long time. There's my social links. I'm sure everyone's probably tired about hearing that by now. If you have not heard this before, go check one of the previous recordings for a longer thing. I guess I just want to point out that in terms of our YouTube channel, we've got a series on the next few tips are going to be about moving the Portals kind of ALM process with the using the configuration migration tool. So if you're interested in that, keep an eye on that. There was a new podcast that we released last month where we talked about with Franco and Ulrike, where we talked about the styling a portal and how you kind of make it look not like a portal. So if that's of interest, definitely check that out. And I got a couple new blog posts up, so that's all up there too. So as always, thank you to Jason and the folks at MS Dynamics World for helping us with get the word out and registering and the GoToWebinar and all that sort of stuff. Really appreciate all the help that they give us every month to have this call and make the cost to join very low, as in $0. So that's always great to get their help. In terms of agenda, same as every month. I've got a little bit of news here that I can share up front. Just go through what's happened over the last month or so. Then we'll get into today's featured presenter, Omar, talking about the Web API, and we'll talk about the next call, as well as we may have some time for Q&A. But as Jason mentioned, if you do have any questions as Omar or any of us are speaking, please drop them in the questions and we will do our best to get those answered. All right, so in terms of Portals news, first thing here is just the number of sessions or the number of conferences that are going to be going on over the next couple of weeks here. We've got the Global Power Platform Bootcamp, which I believe is like this weekend, tomorrow, kind of the next day, I think. And the highlight for that, as far as Power Apps Portals is concerned, is, oh, and I've misspelled his name. That's great. It's not Dilip Singh, it's Dilip Singh. Sorry, Dilip. He's having a session on the vision and the roadmap for Power Apps Portals. So that's always where we get to hear the goodness of what's coming. To be honest with you, we usually find out more from those sessions than we do out of even release notes. They're often a preview of what release notes might be. So if you're interested in the what's coming with Power Apps Portals, anytime Dilip is talking, I recommend that you check it out. As well as we got the Scottish Summit, which I believe was voted the #1 in-person conference of 2020, just because they did it like a week before the whole world shut down, so it was kind of the only one of 2020. But it's a fantastic event. All free, and they've got at least 10, I tried to count them all, I think they got 10 or 11 sessions on Portals from all your favorite people. I know, I think Oliver's got one, I know that Nick Dolman has one, I know that newly minted MVP Alexander's got one. I know I'm forgetting people, but like it's a who's who of Portals people. have a bunch of great sessions on portals. So definitely recommend you check that out. And I believe is that next weekend, I think. I'm sure there's people on this call because I think I saw Oliver. Can you just confirm, is that, or Ricky, is that next weekend, I think, maybe? So definitely worth checking that out. There's a ton of portal content and then a ton of other content as well. So strongly recommend that you check that out. Beyond that, a couple other community tools that I wanted, getting a little ahead of myself here, a couple other community tools that I wanted to kind of highlight here. So one is something from our good friend Jonas Rapp. He's not the king of the XRM toolbox because that would be Tanguy, but the close king number 2 tied with Dare Labar would be Jonas Rapp. So any of the tools that he builds, they're built right because he helps build the actual XRM toolbox. So he's got a tool called the Portal Entity Permissions Manager. So definitely worth checking out. It's kind of an easier way to look at your entity permissions and manage them from within XRM Toolbox. So shout out to Jonas for that tool, and you can get that in the XRM Toolbox in the collection of tools there. I see Oliver saying the 27th Saturday. So is that, if my math is correct, yeah, that would be next weekend. So we got this weekend with the Power Platform Global Bootcamp, and then the week after that is Scottish Summit. So lots of great events coming up here. The other tool that I wanted to highlight was a tool, and I should have put his name in. I forget the name of the person who did this, but basically a tool that makes it yours, I think maybe, a tool that allows you to do some development. I think it's really a tool that uploads files from your local machine to Power Apps portals. And I think that the common use case for that is if you want to edit things in something like VS Code, so that you can do your edits in VS Code and have them essentially kind of automatically synchronize back up to CDS or Dataverse. So if you've ever wanted to use a tool, if you're big into VS Code and that's the editor that you want to use to edit your web templates, that sort of thing, web pages, you can take a look at that tool that will let you do that in VS Code and then upload it to Dataverse, as opposed to kind of copying and pasting and manual stuff that is ugly. So that's another cool tool to check out. And that's kind of what I had for the portals news for this month. So what I'd like to do is introduce Omar. I'll let him do his own full introduction, but very excited to have Omar with us today to show us all the cool stuff that he's done with the Portals Web API, which I don't know if I've heard that it's technically generally available. I believe last I heard is that it was scheduled for February, and last I heard is that it's still on track to be in February. So that gives Microsoft another couple weeks to get that done. But I believe that the web API will be GA soon here. So for any of you who have been maybe not using it because it was still in preview, you're going to soon be able to get your hands on it and use it for production projects. So excited to have Omar. And then I guess we'll just switch the presenter to Omar and we'll let him go.
Thanks, Nick. You'll share my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Omar Zaarour, and today I'm going to talk about the new feature of Web API in Portals, what we can do with it, and the limitations, and some examples that we can basically benefit from the Web API to build. Most of my interest in this and Power Platform comes actually when I do some blogs or presentations. Something is about trying to overcome the limitations of the platform, because in my experience, it's in this platform we say no to many things when it comes to requirements, and I like to have less no's basically when I build solutions, so that the clients get more excited about the platform. So the Web API is one of the things that I liked, recent features that I liked in Power Portals, Power App Portals, because as you know, it's like we don't have access to the backend, and we need some more flexibility to build cool things. So a little bit about, by the way, the presentation for global Power Platform Bootcamp is this Saturday, and I will be doing this same presentation on Saturday as well. So a little bit about me. I currently work as an independent consultant. My current client is the Canada Energy Regulator. I am based in Calgary, and if you're interested, check my blog at transform365.blog, where I log about mostly technical stuff around the Power Platform and Azure. So as Nick mentioned, this feature is in public preview right now. It will soon, I don't have an exact date on when it will be general availability, but just maybe check the documentation for the coming few weeks. Hopefully it will be available to use. And there is like your portal version must be above or equal to this 92641, which basically most of the portals now, if you are on a regular update cycle, they are more than this version. And this feature is about doing operations on data, like contacts, accounts, data entities, not configuration entities. And there is a few upcoming enhancements that actually part of wave 1 of 2021. We will talk about them in a bit. Okay. So what we will go through here, portal history for those who are not familiar with the previous versions of the portal. And we will talk about the CRUD functionality, the current ones and their limitations, and what we couldn't do before versus what we can do now. And we will introduce a web API. We will go quickly over the syntax in the slides, but also in the code. I will pinpoint a couple of helpful tools and some small demos. Okay, so in the old times, the portal was called ADX Studio. It was a full ASP.NET project that you can do whatever you want with it. It is the most flexible version of the portal where you have access to the code behind. You can host it yourself online or on your servers. It's currently open source, but deprecated. There is no support from Microsoft anymore. So the suggestion from Microsoft is that you don't use this open source portal unless you really need to. You have complex requirements that can't be fulfilled with the online portal. Then, and I don't know, 2017 maybe or 2018, the portal became online, but with a limitation that you don't have access to the backend code, and it is provisioned for you by Microsoft. And there is like limited things you can do. Like there is configuration, you can configure the portal, plus you can play with JavaScript and Liquid to do customizations. But at that point, you had to have a Dynamics 365 behind it, like some like customer service or sales or marketing to have a portal. But the latest one is basically Power App Portal, which is you just need a Dataverse or a CDS, as previously called, database behind it, and you can provision a portal in a vanilla Dataverse now, right? So again, it is online like the previous one. In addition to Liquid and JavaScript on the front end, the web API is introduced for customization. Now, the current built-in CRUD functionalities, as you may know, the entity forms where you can create or edit a record, or maybe view a record in read-only mode. Entity list, where you can view a list of records and perform some actions. Web forms for multi-steps, create and edit. And Liquid Fetch XML for read-only. Those are pre-web API. Now, in a lot of projects, we get asked to do things that the portal cannot do, like how to create or update records without entity forms or web forms, because maybe the they don't. The entity forms and web forms, basically, they are kind of opinionated because their backend code is locked now. We can't access it. We have to work with what we have. And some companies, they don't like what the portal has right now. Some other requirements, they want nicer feedback to create or update delete operations instead of the page or form refresh. They are not very user-friendly currently. And some also requirements come about building your custom list experience instead of the entity list, where you, for example, want editable grids. And another one is using newer JavaScript frameworks. Now you can use like a piece of React or Angular inside the portal if it's JavaScript, but if that piece needs to call some backend APIs, you can't currently, unless you use an API that's hosted outside the portal. And calling an action from that verse. So you are in the portal, you want to call an action behind the scenes. Currently, it's not possible with like basically custom development, unless I personally think it's not available to call an action. But unless Nick can confirm, maybe we can do it some other way. The user profile photo. I like this feature because a lot of clients ask, okay, there is a profile photo on the profile page. Can we use it? In ADX Studio, yes, we could, because we had access to the C# code where we can do upload and download. But currently, it's just a fake placeholder that you can't actually utilize. So the limitations, the first one is the current entity forms, web forms, they are opinionated. You have to use what the portal provides to you. They became opinionated once their code is locked. So we have to basically use them as they are with small modifications around them. If you want to customize those entity forms and web forms to match your detailed needs, it might be hard because you need to play with JavaScript, the DOM and CSS and Liquid to make it look like what you want. But behind the scenes, actually, it doesn't look nice when you are actually modifying the DOM in a kind of a random way. The third one is not the most modern experience. There is a lot of frameworks now that provide single page applications, things that they don't need the page to refresh. Previously, we couldn't do very easily, but now with the web API, we should be able to. Plus team skills, like if you have a skilled React developer, for example, on your team, and you'll ask them to change an entity form, they don't actually use their React skills. They can't produce nicer UIs. They have to go and play with JavaScript and basically the current existing entity form to hide and show things and play with CSS. But if they are able to actually build the full React component or components, that would be nicer and cleaner from team perspective. Now, how we overcame those limitations? Most of the cases we don't. When we just say no, that the portal cannot do this and that, right? The other way is we used to host some APIs outside the portal that we can call, and those APIs, they have access to Dataverse. With the introduction of flow, it became easier. We can just create an HTTP flow, and we can call that flow. This comes with limitations that not the most secure way, because like flow, you need to manage your keys, and most of the time they will be accessible actually in the JavaScript. You can find the key that you are using to call the flow. So it's not the most secure way. Also, there is this the other burden of having another service outside the portal that you want to maintain. If everything is contained within the portal, that would be the ideal case. So Web API. Web API is introduced like last year in private preview. Then a couple of months ago, it became public preview. And it basically can create, update, delete, disassociate records with AJAX calls. And also you can call entity bound actions. There is also global actions that are coming in wave 1 of 2021, but for now we only can call entity bound actions. It follows a simple syntax. syntax, and it uses the same things that we are used to, like entity permissions to control access to entities, and site settings for another layer of security that we will basically touch upon soon. So as we said, when we set up the web API, we need to set up the entity permission. If you want to create contacts, you have to have an entity permission with the proper scope to create contacts. We have, for each entity that we want to expose to the portal through the web API, we have to have two site settings. One is called web API entity name, like contact, for example, the logical name of the entity, and /enabled, and you set it to true. And there is a web API contact, for example, fields, and you say comma separated field names. Or if you want all fields to be exposed, which is not recommended, you put star. Now, even though it says fields here, it's not necessarily fields, which we will touch upon again in the demos, okay? And there is a boilerplate code. It's just a small help or Ajax function that Microsoft provides to us so that we can call those operations. This is the Ajax function. It's basically, you just copy it, put it in a web template and reuse it. In my case, I like to put it in a web file so that I put it maybe in the footer of the website and it's loaded on the website level, so I can call this web API object from anywhere in the website. As you can see, it does a simple thing. There is a shell.get token deferred. It's a built-in portal command that gets the token for you and put it as a header in the Ajax call that you are calling from Dataverse. So basically what this does, gets the token from the portal and put it as a header called request verification token, and sends the request and get back the results for you. So I will show a little modification that I did to this code so that it accepts, I will show it next, but I modified this code a little bit just to be more appropriate for my demos. So the syntax. To create an entity, if you are familiar with OData syntax, then this becomes really easy for you. If you want to create an entity, you use a post operation with the URL, portal URL /_API, for example, on an account entity, and you provide it with the data that you want. So on the left side, you can see how I'm calling the Ajax helper web API.save Ajax, and I provided it's a post. The URL is accounts, content type is application JSON, and the data, I just need to create an account with the name sample account, right? And on the success, if you are familiar with Ajax, you know, Ajax returns success, error, and done and completed, all these events. You can just listen to them here. So on the success, I want to, for example, get the entity ID of created record. Now, it becomes actually more, you can have the data more complex than that. Look at the right side here. You can create an account called sample account. You can create a primary contact ID with the first name, last name in the same request. And also you can create opportunities under this account in the same request by providing an array of opportunities. And under the opportunity, you can create a list of tasks. So this is what they call deep insert. This is a singular atomic operation. If it fails, then you're good because nothing will be created right for you. But if it succeeds, everything will be created for you. So that's the deep insert, which is something I really like about the portal web API. Is if you set up like complex forms on the portal where you can collect all this data at once and create it at once, you would be able to. For update, we have a couple of updates. We have patch and put, and basically it's similar to OData. You provide the entity plural name accounts, and you give the ID, and in the JSON you provide all the fields that you want to update. On put, it's a single property value. Instead of updating the whole record or multiple values, you say I want to update the name only. So you give it the account's ID and /name, which is a property name, and you just give it a value of a new name. Think of this if you want to have an editable grid, for example, and you want to edit a single field. it's better to use the put operation here, not the patch operation, because you're not editing the whole record. Deleting an entity, again, there is a basic delete that deletes the whole record, and there is a single property delete, which is equivalent to a single put with, you just remove the value of that property. So you put /description and you give it basically that you want to delete the description property only of the record. Associating entities is a little bit more complex, where you set lookups, for example, on the record, or basically you can relate one-to-many if you want to create the many side of one-to-many relationship, or lookups if you are creating the lookup side of a many-to-one relationship. So they exactly follow the same OData principle that you use in web resources, for example. Okay. Also, you can, of course, remove a lookup or remove a relationship between opportunities and accounts, let's say. Another cool thing is you can call an action from the portal. Think of this like if you have a requirement to subscribe people into the portal, and you need, when someone subscribes, you need to create, let's say, a subscription record in CRM, but also you need to create a task for a specific user in CRM to follow up. You can do this, all of this in Web API, but this means that if the logic changes and you say, I want to create a phone call activity instead of a task activity for a CRM user, you need to go and change the code, right? But if you create an action in Dataverse that basically receives an email as an input and does a lot of things like create subscription record, send an email back thanking the contact for their subscription, and basically assign a task or a phone call activity to the user X. So all this logic can be business logic now, and we just call it using the Web API. But if we need to change the logic later, we just change the action. We don't change the Web API. So what's not part of the Web API, which comes to the limitations? Non-entity bound actions. So currently the action must be related to, for example, to the contact entity for it to work. Wave 1 of 2021, this will change, and we will have global actions. Clearing cache with Web API calls. There is no specific call that you can make to clear the cache, but there is workarounds to clear cache for specific records. Nick Dolman here, he put a nice post in his blog on having kind of a field that you basically change from the Web API. Maybe you can just make a 2-option set field that's hidden. It's not on the form or anything. You just change it using the Web API from true to false or false to true, which will cause the cache to be cleared on that specific record. Get operations. As you saw before, we have create, update, delete, associate, disassociate, but we don't have get. The reason is there is currently we can get things from the Dataverse using the fetch XML, but that is not actually very doesn't fit with the vision of Web API, because fetch XML only executes once on the load of the page. But if you want to get a record, let's say while you are doing some logic in JavaScript, you want to get a record value or something from Dataverse, you can't. I will go through a workaround. I will show you the code for it as well. And finally, it's about data, no metadata operations. So basically, you can't say, give me all the options for a specific option set. No, we can't do that, because it's about data, not the metadata. I can't say, get me all the contacts who start with this first name, but I can't say, get me the metadata of the contact entity. So I will go through a few demos now, and I'll just switch to the portal. As you can see here, it's a simple portal that is basically doesn't have anything special about it right now. I'm not going to write code in front of you, because I have many things to show you, but I will show you the code that I already written. So let's say that as our first demo is, I want to associate a contact on the portal to multiple accounts. Currently, each contact belongs to a single account, and this is actually how the portal is designed. There is this account scope in the entity permission where you can see your, for example, your cases. I have a list of cases here. I am in a company called Blue Yonder Airlines, and this is the cases that belong to this company. I want a way to change my account. So let's say I am a lawyer for this company, but maybe I am an advisor for another company. Okay, so if I want to change that relationship, I need to change my parent account dynamically. We can do this with entity forms, but the way I like to do it here is I wanted, for example, to put it in the header here, where I can have a drop down of my possible accounts and choose an account and update, and everything will reflect the new change. So let's go to web templates. I created a web template. Oh, before the web templates, I want to show you the Ajax helper. That's the same one Microsoft provides, except I added this line. So if it's a get operation, I deal with it separately. We know Get's not supported, so I did a workaround to make it supported, which I will show you the code at the end of the presentation. Okay, so back here, I created a web template called account selector. Okay, to understand this more, I created before an entity called account contact assignments. This entity just to make a many-to-many relationship between account and contacts, where a contact can belong to multiple accounts. I created this entity, and in this entity, you will see I added to the contact form. So I have an assignment. My current contact works with 3 companies, and each one I have different web role. So if I open one of these assignments, you will see that for this company, I work as an accountant. Okay. And for the other company, for Fabricam, I work as a lawyer. Lawyer is an actually lookup to web role. Okay, so what happens here is I created this web template called account selector, where basically I get the assignments using fetch XML that belong to my contact, the logged in user. Okay. And I render them inside a select HTML element here. And for each option, I show that I work for this company as this web role, okay, as a lawyer, as an accountant. And there is a small update button. So what happens when I click the update is I just get which option I selected, and I do a web API call saying, for this contact, okay, which is me, the logged in user, update the parent customer ID account with whatever account I selected, and a custom lookup called active assignment. The reason I have a lookup here, if you go back to the contact, I have the active assignment. So when I choose one of these, I keep track of which one is the active one. The reason is I have a couple of workflows that run behind the scenes to strip me from the web role for the previous assignment and add the web role of the new assignment. So we don't need to worry about this now. It's just like there are 2. If we have time, I will show the workflows. But here I just update the parent account, and the reason I use the parent account, I don't want to just change the active assignment. I actually need to update my parent account on the contact record, because the portal assumes for many features that there is a parent account. For example, my cases, which belongs to the account I'm in. Okay, so on success, I will just do some cleaning or hiding things and stuff. So let's let's see this in action. So if I go to a web page, to the web templates, in the header, I put this in the header. So if we go, where is the custom header here? I just injected this here, and I will save it. So this same web template, the account selector, I injected it here. So let's refresh the page, maybe after cleaning the cache on another screen. Okay, so as you can see, I work for a company, Blue Yonder as an accountant, Fabricam as a lawyer, and Fourth Coffee as a lawyer. So if I go to my cases, and you'll see that when I change Fabricam to and update it, so the first call will be slow because it's warming up, but you will see that the parent account changes and the cases for me changes as well. Okay, and also you can notice because I change the web roles behind the scenes, I only see a page called legal. It's empty, but just to show you that the web role changed, I see legal. If I go accounting again, I see another page because it's accounting now. I don't have access to the legal things on the portal, right? So the web role controls what things I see on the portal. So this is the first example. The second example is some profile page improvements. Okay, if for example here, if I want to change things on this form, I have to update, which will reload the page, right? So let's say I want things to happen in an Ajax way, no reload of the page. Okay, I can just, for example, I want to change my name to this. I just click outside, it's saving, and if I actually refresh the page, you will see my name changes here. So I don't need to update, click update, because I put some JavaScript behind the scenes that takes the new field value and issues a put request to the Dataverse to update the last name. Just to take a quick look at this, this is the profile page that I was in, right? I did this here on the focus out of any input. That's not a lookup because I just want text fields for now. Get me the field name, the field value, and issue this update field. Okay, and show a little saving below it while it's saving. So what I do, I just put and the field name for this user ID, which is the logged in user, and the new value, basically, right? And just hide the saving indicator here. Okay, so basically we can just do this, right? And you can apply this to different types of fields. For me, I just applied it to the inputs. The second thing is this profile picture. Okay, the profile picture, I want a way to upload things, to upload a picture and see my picture here, my the one saved in Dataverse. You actually in Dataverse on the contact entity there is a field called entity image. It's a byte array that stores the image, and you can do that in a flow, for example, or you can update your image in in Dataverse behind the scenes, but on the portal it doesn't show. So what I did is on web templates, I create a new web template called demo contact image. It's a little bit longer code here, but what I do is on the load of the page, so basically when I load the profile page, I want to get the current image that's in the system, right? So I get for this specific contact, which is me, the logged in user, I get the entity image attribute. I save it in a byte array, in a liquid variable called entity image bytes, which is basically here for sure I will get only one contact record. So I'm just optimistic I'm getting the first entity here. So I put some HTML like an upload button, a file selector button to select the file from my desk so that I can upload. And when there are two things that happen here. On the load of the page, I need to load the profile page that we got using Liquid. And on a click of upload, I want to upload the new image. So if I go to the load profile page, I select and modify some CSS on the current container of the image tag basically, and I do some work here, like I join the bytes as comma separated string so that I can use this function, which is byte string to base 64. It's stored as byte array in Dataverse, I need it as base64 string image so that I can assign it as a source of the image tag on HTML. So this basically function is a pretty simple function that uses the BTOA browser function that changes byte array into a base 64. And after I'm done, I'll just assign it as a source for the image. Okay. There is the other way around. When I click upload button, I need to change when I want to save the image back into Dataverse. I need to change it from byte array to base 64 and save it. And basically, it will be saved. Dataverse will save it as byte array behind the scenes, so I don't need to worry about that. I use a file reader to save it. It's not important now to go through all these. Basically, this code is available online to change between things. But yeah, so this is how we upload and load the image. As you can see here, I use fetch XML to get the current image entity. But the workaround for a GET request that I used, I made it look like as it is a web API. I actually call web API save Ajax, but with a GET. And with a GET, it will go to this piece of code that I wrote. It won't continue down the road because I am using a web page, which is like just a normal web page in Portal called custom get. I provide it with, okay, give me this entity with these attributes with some filters. So it's a basic get operation that I built. Again, I will show it at the end. But we can do the same things this fetch XML does with the get operation. Okay. Now let's see this in action. The profile page here has, I included this the contact image as a template on the copy of the page. So let's save and clear cache and refresh. Okay, so you can see that there is a choose file, clear photo, and I want to choose my image. Okay, I click upload, and here's my image. And if I refresh the page, it's there. And if I want to clear the photo, it's not there anymore. Okay, so this is the second demo. The third demo is related to yeah, I have a dummy entity called complaints, and this editable grid is actually most of the code is from Microsoft example about the web API. So I created an entity behind the scenes called complaints, and I'm showing just the title, description, and created on. But as you can see here, I can edit a specific field. Okay. And it shows me a nice indication, no refresh of the page. It updated actually just to make sure if I want to refresh the page, I got the updated version. You can delete without refresh, edit as we said. In addition to that, we can add without entity forms or web forms. An example of a quick complaint that I want to add is this. I'm using some jQuery library dialog to use this, but of course, like you can do this with any framework you want. Like you can build a React form, right? So this is a quick complaint, and this is a quick description. And click save. It's here. Now to show you a little bit more detailed or more complex complaint, if I want to add a detailed complaint, let's say I want to add a wizard-like complaint that's not using the web forms, okay? So this is a detailed complaint and a detailed description. Okay, I click next. I currently populate the current logged in user, but if you want to submit this on someone else's behalf, you can do. And documents, those are, I want to upload documents that show up as notes on the record. I can choose a file, and let's say this picture. Nothing is uploaded yet. It's still in the browser, but when I click next, I confirm and finish. It's here. And if I go to complaints, this is a detailed complaint I just created. You will see that there is this note that I uploaded. Now, this is one example of the deep insert I talked about before. So if I go to web templates, and there is the complaint wizard. So I have like some HTML and the wizard that I talked about. This is just a library for the query called quick wizard or smart wizard, sorry. And in here, once I get all the data, first name, last name, details, title, description, and notes, I do a single call to Web API to post everything for this complaint, including the annotations, which are the notes I collected. I do some work here to basically get the notes and convert them to base64 so that I can just put them in one go in the post request. Okay, so if anything fails, the whole thing will fail, which is good because you don't want to have complaint in Dataverse without notes, for example, if they fail to upload. So this actually drives me, as you can see here, I have the name, description, there are fields. I have the complaint annotations and A51_contact, it's a lookup, right? Because you can see this OData_bind. It's not necessarily fields. So when I talked about site settings before here, we said each entity that we are exposing, it has to have these two. Enabled is true, and the fields. Okay, the fields are the logical fields that I'm exposing plus what we call here, I have this metadata browser, what we call the referencing entity navigation property name for lookups or schema name for relationships. Okay, so we need to be accurate in what we basically tell the web API request to do. And sometimes if it's a lookup, we need to specify the navigation property name instead of the logical name of the field. That's why I said it says fields here, but they are not always fields actually. And the last thing, or maybe thing before the last, is so we showed this. Yeah, the action test. So I have an action here that basically just has an input as an email and does things like create a record and maybe send an email or send a task, whatever. This is the action called subscribe from portal. And when I provide an email and I hit subscribe, this doesn't do a post to a contact or anything, it just calls the action, okay? And the action does whatever it wants behind the scenes. And you will notice here that in my action, I have an input called email with a capital E in the beginning. And if we go to site settings and we go, this action is bound to the contact entity. So anything related to it is, you will see it in the contact fields. You will see email with a capital E, not A51_email, which is a publisher name. No, it has to be the action input parameter exposed in this site setting entity. So we did an action, and finally, I will just go over the GET request. GET request, as we saw before, is not available within the web API. Hopefully, it will be available soon. But normally, what we do to fix this is we create a web page, okay? So called, let me see which web page I created. Yeah, custom get. I created a web page. This web page does nothing, just a container for a page template called custom get. Again, does nothing. It's just a pointer to a web template called demo get records operation. Okay. And what this does is every time I call this page, because fetch XML happens in the load, then the load will basically be triggered for this page. I do a fetch XML, and the result of the fetch XML, I put them in a kind of a nice JSON format using the looping functionality of Liquid, right? But this is a little bit more advanced, because what I do is, like, I'm expecting, I did this GET request a little bit more dynamic. Like, it can work for any entity with specifying one filter attribute value, and the fields you want to be returned, okay? So for example, I can say, give me all the contacts, or sorry, give me the contact with ID equal like specific GUID, right? It will retain that single contact for you. Plus, you can say, give me the first name, last name, email 1, email 2, for example. You can specify the select. So as an example of this, I built this quick form here just to execute the GET request. So I say, I can get me all the contacts here with get me all the contacts, because I'm not providing any filter. It will get me all contacts with their first name and last name. So if I do this get, it will meet the, you will see that first name Willie and 622, all the contacts. But also I didn't put a button to clear this, so I have to refresh. If I can say, give me the contacts where the first name is me. Okay, so it will get me. Okay, that's good. Oh, first name, sorry. Okay, it will get me the contact specifically for this. So this is a general purpose demo of the GET request, but this means that we can use it as if it is a normal web API call. You can use it without reloading the page, without the need for the fetch XML to execute on reload. So hopefully that's a little bit early, a couple of minutes, hopefully for questions and answers. So this is what I got. Please ask me any question you want.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I mean, I see that we got Franco here saying that, yeah, these are just such great practical examples. One of the things that I was really happy with when Microsoft kind of released this is that they gave us a really good practical example of the kind of the editable grid. But I mean, that's only one example. So these are, you know, so many great examples. I'm glad we're able to share this with the community. I know we've got a few minutes for questions here. What I'm going to do is, rather than kind of sealing the screen for you, I'm just going to say that the next call that we've got scheduled will be March 25th at 3 p.m., kind of the regular time. But beyond that, if anyone else has any questions, we can certainly answer that now, whether they're about Web API or anything else related to portals. So I'm seeing one here from Franco. How often does the helper AJAX, or how often does the helper AJAX function? Does it persist for the user session, or do we need to include on every page that makes use of the web API?
Yeah. So that's a good question. Like you can have it in a web template where, for example, I want to use the web API here. I can at the top I can say include the web template that has the AJAX function. But as I said, I have a web file that has this AJAX function as a note, TXT note, and I put it in the custom, in the footer of the website at the very end, I call this web file. So in this case, it will be available to any page that has the footer, which is basically all your website if it follows the same style.
Yeah, so Franco's just saying, how often do we need to include? So yeah, you basically need to include it anywhere you're going to put it. So yeah, what I typically do, same as what Omar does, is you just include it in the footer. Technically, yes, if you don't need it on the page, it's a little bit extra. But I mean, if you need it somewhere, it's going to get cached. So yeah, typically it's just included in the footer on your.
Yeah. One thing actually, there is like we need to take care of the entity permissions. Like for example, I have some flows here, like some problems with the contact. I am allowing the contact to delete. Normally, this delete is unchecked, right? The reason I check the delete is because I want to delete the profile photo, and it didn't allow me because I'm doing a delete operation to clear the photo, right? But normally, like if delete is 100% not allowed, we can switch to like a put operation to clear the photo instead of deleting it. So we need to take care of the security a little bit more. And as you can see here, like this extra filter of security using site settings is really good. But like, yeah, for example, for contacts, I have filtered the fields I want here, but for maybe accounts, I put a star, which means all the fields. If you have a SIN number for a record in your system, you don't want to have star here. So it's good to start with a star, then try to filter things, just what the things you need here to show.
Yep. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions here. So again, Omar, this was exactly what I was hoping to get. You know, a lot of great practical, useful examples, and glad that you're sharing this with the rest of the community. You're doing it again for the boot camp, and yeah, I mean, I think that the capabilities that are going to be available in this web API, I think, are just going to keep expanding and expanding. So hopefully we'll be able to have you back the next time that they announce some new stuff and give us more goodies, because I know that you know, there's lots more that we'd like to see them add to this. So again, thank you so much. Thank you to the MS Dynamics World team and Jason. And unless there's anything else, I think we can probably wrap this up for today.
All right, thank you, Nick. Thank you, Omar, so much. Yeah, we will wrap things up, but please be on the lookout for an update from us soon with access to the recording and other information.
Thank you.